They were never supposed to see what was inside the black hole. Not really. Not directly. No lens could pierce the event horizon. No signal could return. No theory could survive the singularity's infinite density. And yet they did. The year was 2091. At a deep space research station orbiting near Sagittarius A*, Earth's closest supermassive black hole, the international project known as Eventlight Array had just come online. 28 telescopic quantum interferometers, aligned like clockwork teeth, capable of observing gravitational distortions in real time. The goal was modest: verify Hawking radiation signatures, confirm entropy decay rates. The result? A recording from inside the singularity. Not an image. Not sound. A memory. It began with data, unstructured, patternless. But when run through a quantum lattice filter, the waveform did something no one expected. It responded. Not randomly. Not noise. It pulsed in harmony with Earth's solar time, specifically in reverse. At first, the team thought it was a coincidence. An echo. But the patterns sharpened. And on the third day, a physicist named Dr. Kazuo Sato saw something embedded in the data. A shape. A fractal loop. Oscillating backward. A self-replicating quantum code that seemed to represent a moment in time. Not just stored, but alive. And that moment? 3 years ago. July 14th, 2088. 1642 Universal Time Coordinated. The exact moment Sato's daughter died in a traffic collision. He didn't tell anyone. Just stared at the waveform. Ran it again. It returned the same time signature. Again. Again. The black hole wasn't absorbing information. It was remembering, and somehow replaying. By day 5, the data models began showing impossible results. Causality loops. Information emerging before the sensors activated. A lab mouse in the station's biosphere died of cardiac arrest, and 20 seconds later, its ECG monitor showed a pulse. Then a stronger one. Then it blinked. It was alive again. Sato reported the event. He was told it was impossible. He played the recording. The team watched the mouse die and return. Slowly, as if pulled backwards through the event. The phenomenon was classified. The station was sealed. What followed became known only to a few as Project Chronophage, the Time Eater. Sato and a team of 9 physicists were given full isolation clearance. No Earth comms. No external drives. Every day, the singularity pulse grew stronger. The data more precise. The memory of past events began to sharpen into full clarity. At day 14, they received the first image. It appeared on the lab's secondary screen, unprompted. A photograph. Not old. Not historical. A real-time capture of Earth's surface from orbit. Except it wasn't now. It was April 2nd, 2063, the launch day of the first quantum telescope. And in the corner of the image, barely visible, was Sato himself, younger by decades, waving from a gantry. The black hole wasn't just playing memories. It was reconstructing the past, frame by frame, particle by particle. The singularity wasn't a void. It was a perfect archive. A gravitational capsule preserving not just mass and energy, but time itself. They tested it. They uploaded a time-stamped object, a metal cube with a digital ID tag. Logged it, dropped it into the quantum data stream. And exactly 31 seconds later, they watched it reappear in the lab, still warm. Still real. But the timestamp was earlier. By 4 minutes. Chronophage was no longer theory. It was a machine. A natural engine with impossible power. It could reverse time. Not in seconds or fragments, but in deliberate, targeted intervals. And that's when the choices began. The team argued. What to do next? Who decides which moments to pull back? Could you undo tragedy? Prevent war? Revive the dead? Sato remained silent, because he already knew what he was going to do. On day 21, he programmed the system himself. A simple script. Low priority. Hidden from the logs. Rewind. July 14th, 2088. 1642 Universal Time Coordinated. Location, Tokyo. Event, pedestrian fatality. No one noticed. Until it worked. Back on Earth, in a quiet Tokyo neighborhood, a woman awoke in her bed with the faint memory of being struck by a car, but unharmed. Dazed. Her name, Hana Sato. Alive. Not a clone. Not a duplicate. Just returned. Pulled backward across probability, through the event horizon of death, into the moment before the end. Sato never said a word. But the others saw it. because the black hole had changed. Its color shifted, its pulse doubled, and one of the scientists, Dr. Alina Reyes, collapsed at her desk, whispering a phrase over and over. I remember dying. The station changed on day 22. It was subtle at first, small inconsistencies. Lab equipment shifted by inches overnight. Security codes reverted to outdated patterns. Water in the hydrocycle system turned cloudy, as if it had never been filtered. Everyone blamed stress, but deep down they felt it. The rewind had begun, not just in the black hole. Inside the station, time was slipping. It began with Dr. Reyes, the woman who whispered, I remember dying. They checked the medical records. 3 months earlier, Reyes had flatlined during a routine surgery on Earth. No pulse. Declared dead. Revived after 11 minutes. She had told no one, not even Sato. Now she was remembering both timelines. Her dreams blurred. She'd wake up sobbing, coughing water, insisting she drowned. That she wasn't supposed to be here. Then came the second version. A morning alarm went off in dormitory pod C3. Reyes' assigned room. She walked into silence and found herself already there, sleeping. Same hair, same ID tag, same retinal pattern. Alive, and older. Security footage confirmed it. At 2:14 a.m., an identical copy of Dr. Reyes materialized in her bunk. No flash, no sound, just a slow fade into existence, like she'd always been there. And in a way, she had. That's when the team realized what chronophage had truly done. It hadn't just reversed one death. It had reopened the entire timeline. The black hole wasn't delivering selective changes. It was leaking the past back into the present. Across the station, duplicates began to appear. Old versions of files. Outdated experiments reappearing in drawers. A half-burned lab notebook returning with full pages. Written in Dr. Sato's own hand, years before he ever joined the project. Then it escalated. At 4:11 Universal Time Coordinated, the station logged an oxygen pressure spike. Manual inspection revealed the cause. Another Jordan Leong. The mission's flight engineer now doubled. The first Jordan, confused, sweating, began stammering. I already came here. This isn't my first time. Why is it happening again? They ran scans. Both versions were genetically identical. Brainwave patterns matched to 98.7%. But memories differed. The new Jordan remembered different mission events. Different versions of the same days. Meetings that never happened. People who never existed. As if his reality had been pulled from a parallel, corrupted thread and inserted halfway into this one. And worse, both Jordans began deteriorating. Not physically, mentally. Each claimed to see future versions of themselves reflected in the station's glass. Watching, waiting, and in the black hole's data stream, a new pattern emerged. They were no longer watching the past. They were watching possibilities. Timelines that had collapsed. Paths the universe had rejected. And now, through the Singularity, they were bleeding into the present. Chronophage wasn't just reversing time. It was uncollapsing it. Sato retreated into silence. He no longer spoke during meetings. Barely slept. He spent all his hours in the observation chamber, watching the waveform pulse like a heartbeat. He whispered a name once. Hannah. But the others weren't so still. The station began to groan. Not from stress fractures or orbit drift, but from overlap. 2 different layouts of the lab began merging. Half of the reactor room shifted by 18 degrees. A desk appeared inside a wall. Storage closets now had 2 sets of contents, both real, both time-stamped a decade apart. They tried to shut the system down. The command console blinked. Access denied. The Singularity had taken over. They checked the backup generators. Offline. Then the oldest member of the team, Dr. Milanov, vanished mid-sentence. One moment discussing data patterns. The next gone. In his place, an older version. Gray-haired. Thin. Trembling. He fell to his knees and screamed. Not again, not again. You said we could stop at this time. They tried to stabilize him. He died 3 hours later. Autopsy revealed massive neural decay, like someone had torn his memories apart and tried to tape them back together in the wrong order. Sato finally spoke. He stood before the team, gaze hollow. It's not the black hole doing this. It's us. We asked it to undo a moment, and it obliged. But time isn't a thread. It's a knot. Pull one loop too hard, and you tighten the whole system until it snaps. The team stared at him. We're not reversing time. We're collapsing into every version of ourselves. One of the engineers checked the master clock. Time had stopped tracking forward. Then it began counting down. To what? They didn't know. All they knew was that somewhere inside the black hole, something was waiting. Not an object, not a force, but a version of reality where all these moments had happened before. And in that version, they had made it to the end, only to discover they weren't alone anymore. The station was no longer a place. It was becoming a collection of timelines, stitched together like wet paper, drifting in and out of sync with each breath. One moment, the lab would be cold and metallic. The next, the walls were made of ceramic and wood paneling, equipment from the 2060s humming beside machines that hadn't been invented yet. No alarms, no warnings. Reality was layering itself. Jordan, both versions, had vanished. Their quarters sat empty. The only sign they'd existed was a logbook with entries neither of them had written, in a handwriting no one recognized. Each entry ended with the same sentence. We were wrong about the singularity. It doesn't reverse time. It hunts continuity. By day 26, the crew had fractured into fragments of themselves. They'd find each other wandering the halls, older, younger, changed. Sometimes familiar, sometimes not. At one point, Dr. Reyes walked into the lab and locked eyes with a version of herself that had no teeth and wore a NASA patch from a canceled 2053 mission. Neither of them spoke, because both of them remembered dying. Sato, meanwhile, had not left the observation chamber in days. His voice had become cold, distant, almost AI-like. He spoke in strange patterns, like code being executed in real time. And then she appeared. Hannah. Not a dream. Not a vision. Sato's daughter, fully grown. Standing in the medical bay. Alive. No one had seen her enter. No log recorded her arrival. But she was real. Scans confirmed it. Oxygen intake. Cellular structure. DNA match. 99.999%. She spoke softly, as if from a dream. You brought me back. But not here. Not like this. Sato wept. But she didn't touch him. This timeline isn't stable. You've undone too much. The system doesn't know which version of us to keep. Sato asked, what system? And that's when the truth collapsed. The black hole wasn't just leaking time, it was selecting. A quantum singularity exists in all possible states, until observed. Measured. Forced to collapse into a single outcome. Sato's decision to rewind one moment, to save one life, had opened a fracture the size of a universe. And now, the singularity was looking back through the breach. Judging every choice, every ripple, every version of humanity that had tampered with its threshold. And it was beginning to vote. One crew member, Dr. Leonov, woke up in restraints. No one had placed him there. The logs showed his own biometric ID had engaged the lock. In the feed, he stared at the camera and muttered, "They're all in here. All the versions of me. And they don't agree." Then he smiled and broke his own neck. Alarms never sounded, because the station no longer had a present. Time as a concept had eroded. Systems began reacting out of sequence. Food was half-rotten before it was cooked. Water boiled, then turned to ice. A crew member dropped a mug and caught it before she dropped it. And the countdown? It now displayed. -00:00:41. Negative time. Counting into the past. Backwards. Sato finally gathered the remaining crew, 6 of them, or perhaps 7. The number changed depending on who was looking. He explained what he'd learned. The singularity doesn't destroy timelines. It stores them. Every choice. Every version of reality. Until one version crosses a threshold of interference. He looked at them with hollow eyes. We crossed that line. We tampered. And now it's running a comparison. Hannah stood behind him, silent. There will be a final collapse, Sato said. One version of reality will be kept. All others will be erased. Not with fire. Not with death. Just unremembered. The crew stood frozen. And the worst part, Sato said, we don't know which version we are. Dr. Reyes finally asked the question no one dared. What happens if we're the wrong one? Sato only pointed to the observation screen. It was no longer showing the black hole. It was showing Earth. But not the Earth they knew. A version wrapped in clouds that rotated backwards. Oceans where deserts should be. Cities half-formed. A world mid-collapse. A world that had once existed. Now flickering. Dimming. Erased. The final timestamp was -00:00:00:00. And then nothing. No explosion. No light. No noise. The countdown simply ended, as if it had never started. But the change was immediate. One moment, the crew stood together. The next, only Sato remained. No blood. No screaming. No debris. Just absence. Every trace of them wiped clean. Rooms now empty. Quarters unassigned. Mission logs rewritten to show a solo researcher aboard Eventlight Station. Sato wandered the hallways. At first, he believed it was grief. That they'd been taken by the Singularity. That he'd survived by luck or punishment. But the truth was stranger. Because no one on Earth remembered them either. He re-established contact through a secure channel. Earth responded, but differently. Their signals were off by microseconds. Their accents slightly wrong. Names he knew now belonged to strangers. His own history, partially intact. Enough to give him credentials. But the rest? Fractured. There had never been a Dr. Reyes. No Jordan Leong. No Dr. Milanov. Their academic papers didn't exist. Their families had no records. Their timelines had been pruned. Erased by the Singularity's final judgment. And Sato, he was the sole remainder. Or so he thought, until he found the photograph. Buried in a backup module, deep in the system cache, corrupted but intact, a picture of the full crew. 7 people, all smiling, standing outside Eventlight Station before launch. Time-stamped, March 3rd, 2091. That date existed in the new records. But the photo did not. He printed it, stared at it for hours. No one on Earth could confirm their names. Not even Hannah, because she too had changed. She still existed, but not as he remembered. Younger, colder, her voice familiar but formal, like a colleague he barely knew. She didn't call him father. She called him Dr. Sato. In this version, they had never been family. And that's when he knew. The Singularity had kept him, but not his timeline. He had been inserted into a surviving version, a clean thread of history, where the experiment never exceeded ethical bounds, where no memory of reversal existed. Except for his. And that made him dangerous. Because in this reality, he was the glitch. And glitches don't last. The signs came quickly. Objects shifting where he left them. Voices delayed by half a second. Mirrors not showing his reflection. Finally, he began seeing his old crew again. Not in person. In reflections. Glass. Water. Polished metal. Each time he passed a flicker, Reyes, Jordan, Milanov, watching silently. Faces that should not exist. They didn't smile. They didn't blink. They only waited. Until one night, Hannah appeared again, outside his bunk. Only this time, it was the real one. Not the Earth version. The version he remembered. The version he pulled from death. She looked tired. Hollow-eyed. "You should have let me go," she whispered. "Every time you pull the thread, the universe knots tighter. We don't belong here. You know that." Sato reached for her. She vanished. In her place, the spiral. It bloomed across the wall, glowing faintly, same pattern as the Singularity waveform. Endless. Elegant. Irreversible. He returned to the observation deck. The black hole was still there. Quiet now. Waiting. No pulses. No anomalies. Just a singular point of gravity holding everything in. A perfect machine. Reset. He opened the console. Typed in one final command. Reverse none. Observation only. And then he sat in silence. He didn't speak. He didn't record. He just watched for hours, for days. And in that stillness, something changed. Not outside. Inside. He felt himself forgetting. Not like sleep. Like decay. Entire years slipping away. Concepts breaking apart. Equations dissolving mid-thought. He wrote in his notebook, over and over, "Do not interfere," until he forgot what the word meant. The last entry read, "This is the correct timeline. Even if I don't belong in it. Let it be." And then, the room was empty. No body. No pen. No nameplate. Just a console, humming quietly. And somewhere deep inside the Singularity, one thread of reality remained unpooled. The version where time was left untouched. Where the dead stayed dead. Where no one tried to rewind the past. And the universe, for now, was at peace.